Hey there, so today we have another review. This is a beer from Perennial Artisanal Ales. Man, I remember this guy. This is Sump, their coffee Imperial Stout. Comes in at 11.5. This actually, I believe, has lactose in it too, if you look on Untappd, but it doesn't actually say on the can, right? Oh yes, this beer contains lactose. I don't believe it formerly had lactose, but anyway, Perennial, the brewery, Braxis, barrel aged Braxis, like super famous beers when I got into beer, and Sump was something that blew me away. Like, wow, like you don't need to get the spicy version. Like this coffee stout is actually insane. I remember like my first impression of Sump was like mind blowing. So that was back in the day when they had 750s. Now it's a 16-ounce can. Now it's accessible. Now it's distributed. Now it's not a one-off or a brewery only kind of beer. This one specifically, coffee origin is Las Cotorras, Arequipas, Mexico, and it is named after Sump, which is a coffee roaster in St. Louis. So on the website, look how dark this guy is. Like, I don't know if you guys can see, like this pours pitch black. And then like you see there's certainly a good amount of residual sugar here, because like the carbonation was like struggling to create the head, and that's when you sort of see it. And actually, the other thing you can do when you make a mess, sometimes you can like get the beer on your finger, and then like beer is noticeably sticky. Sometimes, usually beer is like watery, but yeah, this is very sticky on my fingers. So very dark, definitely a thick boy. And what tasting notes they give on the coffee is like almond, red pear, which I've never had red pear, and then chocolate, which I guess chocolate's obviously in this beer in the sense of like the roasted malts, but I guess the coffee has chocolate flavors to it. But let's see how this guy. So obviously beautiful beer, wonderful dark tan head. I mean that looks like Bourbon County to me, right? Like, I mean, maybe not as fluffy of a head, but oh yeah, that's surprisingly not as coffee forward as I would have expected, but more of that kind of like a sweet, rich maltiness. I mean, I'm getting like caramel and like graham cracker and what else? Vanilla wafers. Like I'm getting ice cream. I'm getting like vanilla ice cream. I'm getting brownie batter. A little bit of like, now the coffee is underneath, so it's like toasted hazelnuts and that really nice kind of like mocha kind of flavor. It's not as like astringent and bitey and espresso-y as some aromatic coffee, the aromatics of some of the coffee beers. Yeah, the one I think of is like KBS. It's very sharp. This one's very like mellow, rounded, desserty, with a little bit of booze in there, a little bit of licorice from the malt. Cheers, smells killer. Have a nice temp too. Probably have it around like 45, 50, like barely any chill on it. Wow, that's a thick boy. Wow, that's really tasty. So the fun thing about this beer is that the coffee is just so well integrated into the beer. Sometimes it tastes like you're drinking coffee and beer, or sometimes it tastes like the coffee's like on top of the beer, right? You taste Imperial Stout and you get like espresso and bitterness and all these like sharp flavors. Not necessarily a bad thing, but here it's like the coffee's like folded into the beer. I mean, I don't know if you can think of the analogy of like sort of like when you're baking and like sort of you just add a bunch of things and then like you start mixing it and just becomes a homogeneous kind of like dough, or whatever you're trying to do. That's sort of what like visually tastes like on the palate, if that makes any sense. Like they've like folded the coffee into this beer really wonderfully. Like it's seamless. Taste the roasted qualities up front, like a little bit of booze, a little bit of the bitterness, and then the coffee bitterness hits up front. But it's this really nice kind of like it's like your black coffee with like 1.5 to 2 packets of sugar in it, right? It's not pitch black like astringently bitter, but it still has a little bite to it, but it's not overly sweet, so it plays in that realm. Yeah, that's a good analogy. I'd say like 1.5 to 2 packets of sugar in it. Obviously no creamer because it's like a dark product. I get the nuttiness though, for sure, like almond. I almost taste hazelnut just because that's like what I'm familiar with. Like, back in the day, I mean, I don't drink it anymore. The Dunkin' Donuts Miami is absolutely terrible, but not that Dunkin' Donuts is where you should get your coffee. But as a kid, yeah, hazelnut Dunkin' Donuts. Hell, I used to work at Dunkin' Donuts. What's like maybe my first job? Yeah, maybe my first job. Anyway, so Wow. And then like the bitterness on the back end is seamless of like the roasted malts, like this kind of lingering bitterness and the coffee. So not only does the bitterness hit up front, but it also finishes on the back end. And then the fun thing is you can't really quite tell where the coffee and the beer sort of ends on the bitterness on the tails end. Drink super safe or super dangerous for, not safe, super dangerous for 11.5. I mean, full blind, I would have guessed this beer was maybe like 9.95. A little bit of dryness on the alcohol on the back end, but nothing too noticeable, not too warming. The stickiness and all that I was noticing, I'm cool with that. Sometimes sometimes the beers pastry wise are like too intense, and I generally don't like that stuff too much. But this plays in like the angry chair realm, where it's like, it's sweet, but like you can't really quite tell. Like there's something tasty about the sweetness here. I think what it is partially is that they've used a good amount, enough of roasted malt and enough bitterness of coffee to sort of balance it. So it's a wonderful, again, like kind of like woven characteristics of flavor, where this is boozy, sweet, bitter. But somehow when you combine all those, none of those are actually there. Like this is not, I'd argue, not boozy, not bitter, nor sweet, but it's all of those, right? It still has all those elements in it, but somehow they've balanced them out. So this is where balance matters, right? Like all the things sort of like harmonize and like balance out each other, where now you get a really tasty product. Where for sure this objectively is a boozy, sweet, and bitter beer, right? Wow, yeah, this thing's tasty. I mean, I will say it's a little bit cloying. I'm drinking this guy easy. Like it's a little too fast, I honestly. But yeah, let's go with a really solid 90. I like the purity of it. 97. I like the purity. It's coffee, Imperial Stout, and lactose, and no marshmallows, no vanilla, no other desserty flavors. It's just coffee, stout, lactose, and like somehow it's just like so much more than its parts. Like it's desserty, ice creamy, nutty, stouty, Imperial stouty, creamy, absolutely fantastic. So 97. I highly recommend it. This, I don't think I'm gonna have a better coffee stout, like just coffee stout, anytime soon. So until next time, cheers, later.